pleasure for us to be here to talk about and to play jazz music. I'm going to be up here. This is Wessel Warm Daddy Anderson on the alto saxophone. Victor Bourne's on the tenor and soprano saxophone. Wycliffe Pinehorn Gordon on the trombone. Erlen Riley on the drums. Reginald Beal on the bass. Mark Carey on the piano. Now we're going to talk about different elements of jazz, and we're going to demonstrate them. And we want y'all to feel free at any time to ask questions. We'll also come to a point where we have y'all be in a drum set and doing different things. We got a lot of things in store, okay? And we're going to start by talking about the three basic fundamentals of jazz. The first is improvisation. Who can tell me what improvisation is? Anybody? Improvisation? What does that mean?
Free flow.
What does it mean?
Make it up as you go.
Make it up as you go. You can't get no more basic than that. You make it up as you go. Now we're going to give y'all an example of improvisation. Now we were just making that up. Now it could pass for some type of jazz, but not a lot. Improvisation is the freedom part of the music. It means you do whatever you want to do. You have an idea, something comes to you, you do it. But why did that not really sound that good? Because it's not only improvisation, it's collective improvisation. And collective improvisation means you do what you want to do as long as you're not in the way of somebody else doing what they want to do. So that limits a lot of what you can do. It means you learn to listen as hard as you talk. And when you're talking, it's easy to be very, very expressive. But it's much more difficult to be expressive when you're listening. So our music is organized in such a way, yes. It's organized in such a way that we have the right to improvise. We make up music to a certain degree, but we make it up together. And that collective improvisation is done in the context of a rhythm, and that rhythm is called swing. Now, I'm express something about the swing rhythm to y'all. Is the swing rhythm brings opposites together. Brings opposites together. So we actually play in 2 times at once. 2 basic times are 2, which is just you have 2 feet. So okay, you can count that rhythm. Let me hear you count. Say 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now, okay, in order to swing, we play in 2 and 3 at the same time. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Do that for me. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. It's participation, man. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I can't hear y'all. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, when you're swinging, that becomes ding, 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 ding. Okay, you hear that? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, oh, 1, 2, 3, So when we're playing jazz, we actually are playing in 2 times at once. We've heard about improvisation. Make up what you want to make up. Collective improvisation, not really. Swing brings opposites together, the 2 and the 3 rhythm. Now we're going to talk about the blues. Okay, the swing is the feeling of all of us doing something together. Improvisation is the sound of us being free, our individuality. And the blues is the feeling of all that is invisible, passion, emotion, sorrow, joy. We achieve the blues, the sound of the blues, by being expressive on our horns, like the sound of a voice. We have a master here of expression on his instrument, Mr. Wycliffe Gordon. He's going to show you some different ways to express emotions in a blues, and with the sound of the blues. This is an expression of sadness. Somebody took something that belonged to him. Now let's hear him play that in the context of a song. The same thing. You see, the blues allows you to improvise these types of feelings. What about another expression? Joy and a little laughter. This is an expression of anger. We've barely been here 5 minutes, and we've heard about improvisation, and that's the freedom of individual expression. And we've heard about collective improvisation, which means we have to listen as hard as we talk. And we've heard about swing, which is how we come together, and swing brings the opposites together, the 2 and the 3. And we've heard about the blues, and the blues is an expression of passion and feeling in the music, and all those things that are invisible, because music is the Lord of the world of the invisible. And now we're going to talk about the blues, not just as a sound, but the blues as a form, because we play jazz. And whenever you play something, you play it on some type of form. If you play football, you look at the field, you see 2 nets and a dividing line, you know you're going to play some football. If you're going to play tennis, you look and you see 1 net in the middle and you have 2 sides to the court. If you're going to play basketball, you have 2 goals hung up and you have a dividing line, and you look at that field and you say, we must be getting ready to play some basketball. With jazz, we play on the form of songs. Now we're going to teach you all the form of the blues. And the blues has 12 bars. I'm going to count the bars for you, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 4, 6, 2, 3, 4, 7, 2, 3. 3, 4, 12, 2, 3, 4, time. Okay, when we're playing jazz, this form goes around and around and around. And every time this form goes around, we play something different on it. I'm going to give you an example. We're going to use this form, and we're going to each play solos. So here's one. Improvisation is your individuality. We've heard that collective improvisation means not really. And we've heard that swing means we come together in the 2 and the 3 times. It brings the opposites together. And we've heard that the blues deals with the expression of feeling. And now we've also learned that the blues is also a form. Now, I want to see if you all can hear the blues form. So when we reach the top of the form, I want y'all to raise your hands. Let's try it again. No early. Let's do it again. That's it. We're getting closer to it. Exactly. Now, beautiful. Now we know the form. We know the basics of the music. Now, next thing I'm going to talk about is the ways that we play. Jazz music is a music of communication. It's designed for us to communicate with each other, to listen and to speak. So the terminology around the music is all about listening and speaking. First, we do what is called soloing. You heard us all soloing. A solo means I speak myself with the rhythm section. I play my solo. Okay, here's an example just of a solo. has a completely different style of solo. Now we're going to hear Mr. Wessel Anderson solo, and I want you to notice how he's going to play entirely different material in an entirely different style from the way I play. Because in jazz, we prize individuality. We prize the fact that you come up with your own way to play. As I always said, Lester Young, a great tenor saxophonist, used to say, if you want to join the throng, you got to sing your own song. One. That's a solo. You enjoy it? Did he play? Now the next thing is we have something that's called a riff. And a riff is a thing that's just repeated over and over and over again. It's like people with kids know that. Stop talking, be quiet, sit down, sit down, sit down. Go brush your teeth, brush your teeth, brush your teeth. Be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. Stop hitting your sister. Stop hitting your sister. Stop hitting your sister. Stop. Stop. Now we're going to have Mr. Victor Goins. He's one of the world's experts in riff setting. A riff, you set a riff. That's what, whenever you make up a riff, they say set the riff. And the riff is a repeated phrase that reinforces the swing and takes us home. That was a good riff. So now we know that soloing is you by yourself, making your statement in your individual way. We know that a riff is a repeated phrase. A lot of times it signals it's time for you to stop soloing. If you solo for a long time, all other horn players will start to play riffs. Please stop. Then there's something called call and response. Okay, it's just as simple as when someone calls your name and you respond, yes. Or if you don't like them, what? Or if you really don't like them, no response. So now we're going to do a nice call and response between Mr. Victor Goins and Mr. Wycliffe Gordon. Vic will call and Wycliffe will respond. Thing I'm going to talk about when we're talking about jazz and how it relates to language and speaking together is collective improvisation. It's like we're at a dinner table and we're all speaking at the same time. You can sit at a table and listen to 5 or 6 different conversations and be a part of every one of them. It takes a little bit of skill and concentration, but it can be done. Now let's hear an example of collective improvisation. We're all solo at the same time. And you're going to notice we have to make a lot of choices. We can't play exactly what we want. We have to work with each other. 1, 2. we talked about improvisation, individuality. We talked about collective improvisation, working together. We talked about swing, playing together, bringing the opposites together. We talked about the blues, being passion and the way that you feel about things. We talked about the blues form. We learned about the 12 count. We talked about riffs. We talked about solo. We talked about cause and response. We talked about collective improvisation. Now we're going to go to the groove machine, which is the rhythm section. This is actually the heart of the band. Horns, we sit in the front and we look cute and we try to polish our horns and everything, but they do all of the work. The bass and the drums are the heart of the band. What they do determines what we are doing. So far you've heard them play a Charleston rhythm. Now what I'm going to have them do is they're going to keep the same form of the blues, but they're going to decide different grooves. In each chorus they're going to play a different groove. And I want you to notice how what they play defines the style of music. I'm just going to give a little description of the rhythm section. If you liken it to an automobile, the bass is the wheels, everything sits on top of it. The drums, the motor, makes everything go. And the piano is the body, it makes everything look good. First we're going to start with the groove that we've been playing, which is a Charleston shuffle. This is a walking shuffle. This is reggae. Swing out like John Coltrane. There's a New Orleans groove. Afro-Latin. Okay, it's still a blues. I want y'all to raise your hand when we get to the top of the form. That's right. Church 12/8. Church backbeat. Okay, you get an idea. I don't want y'all to think every rhythm section can do that. These are the greatest musicians in the world, so they know these different grooves and can play them with such authenticity and feeling. But it gives you a sense of what the rhythm section does. The rhythm section actually defines the style of music. So now we're going to play a blues, and we're going to utilize the many things that we talked about. One thing we did not talk about, which I'm going to describe now, is a break. And the break happens when everybody in the band stops and one person has to carry the rhythm and the feeling of the band alone. Let's get an example of some breaks. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, that was a good 30 minutes about jazz. That's basically what we do. Now, do you all have some questions for us? We're happy to answer questions of any sort. Don't be shy. Yes.
When you're improvising, how do you decide who will kind of lead?
Well, generally, the horn player leads. But if the piano is soloing, the piano leads. If the bass is solo, he leads. If the drum solo, he leads. So whoever is the featured soloist, we all follow them. But sometimes we have responses. We will follow the drums in terms of the time. The king is the drum. The drum, this is the way our music is set. That's just how that is. It's very drum-centric music. So when he changes the grooves, when he makes a determination, we will follow. If he starts to play really energetically and loud with a lot of fire, we are going to do that. Hopefully, you hope the drummer is kind. In this case, he's very kind. But when you have a mean drummer, you have a very hard time. When that drummer starts to impose his or her will, you better follow. Yes.
How old were you? Before you when you started playing music?
I started when I was 6.
Piano when I was 5 and trombone 12.
I was kind of a late bird. I started about 12 or 13. Wasn't very good then.
Clarinet when I was 8. Started playing drums when I was 3. Piano at the age of 8.
Cello at the age of 4.
I didn't know he played cello. His mama plays cello. Okay, there you go. Yes.
When you're not touring, how many hours a day do you practice?
You know, I'm sure we're all different, but I deal with music all the time. If I'm practicing, I'm writing, so it's not, I can't put an hour amount on it. That's just what I do. All day, all night. That's what I do. And we all, I mean, everybody. Hurley said, when we're not practicing, we're thinking about it too. Plus, we have a lot of experience. We've been playing for a long time, and we love playing. So most of the guys work constantly. We don't always play together, so, but they're working. We always argue about who's going to get the heart attack first. So we're working, and we love playing. Yes.
When you first started, did you love it or did your parents force you to do
That's a good question. Well, my father's a musician, and he didn't have to he never forced me, ever. He's too cool for that. But he could play, so I wanted to be like him. And I wanted to be like the other musicians. I didn't like the music they played. Jazz, I liked, what was on the radio, popular music, but they were so cool, and they had an emotion that was so different, they were smart, that I wanted to be like him. So he never forced me. I mean, I have kids, I never would force them. And Wycliffe has kids that play. His oldest son is a great trombonist and tuba, so he can speak to his experience. We all have different experiences.
Yeah, I was never forced to play. I was stopped from playing. My mom didn't want us to have drums in the house. She felt that all of us made enough noise without beating on things. But, no, never forced. I just loved to play music. My late father played classical music, and so by the time age 12 when I started playing trombone, I already had a serious love for music. I grew up in church, and music was just always a part of my life, so it never had to be forced. Once I started doing it, it was just something that I knew that I would always do.
Well, my father's a musician also. He plays drums, and I grew up in New York City, so he would take me to see all the great musicians who would come. I saw the great Dexter Gordon come back to New York City. So Woody Shore, so he made it easy for me to understand how to play the music. So he would go in the basement and he would rehearse musicians, and I would just kind of go and look at them. He said, "Come on down." He said, "Don't play yet because you don't know how to play." So he would just go practice, but it was never any pressure. So now I have a son who's 19, and he's playing music, and he plays trombone because of Mr. Wycliffe Gordon. So yes. I think it does a lot of, you have a lot of influences, from your parents when you first started.
I think of all the people up here, I don't come from a musical family. That's kind of interesting. But I was never forced, but I'm from New Orleans, like many of my friends up here, so there's always music around the city, I always say we had an unfair advantage being from New Orleans. We get to check out everything. Well, as Mr. Boyne said, I am also from New Orleans, and I came from a musical family. My grandfather was a drummer, and my uncles and my mother, they all played music, and music was always around the house. But I think in order to really grow to a certain level in your craft and in playing music, you have to have a passion for it. You have to have a love for it. And if you don't do that, you won't find the time to practice. You won't spend any time trying to hone your skills. So obviously, there has to be a passion or a love for playing music.
Well, I come from a musical family in a very musical town as well, Washington, D.C., which is steeped in music. And one of the coolest things that you could possibly do is to be in a band. And that was my goal from the time I heard music. I was not forced, and I was inspired, in fact.
They've said it all.